Every empire repeats the same comforting promise: your money is safe with us. Every government reassures its people: relax, our guarantees will last forever. But history has a habit of pulling the rug from beneath our feet. Have you ever wondered why, no matter how strong a country seems, its currency or banks can fail overnight? Why do some nations crumble while others endure? It doesn't whisper, it doesn't warn. It simply reminds us, again and again, that nothing built on trust stays unshaken for long. From the power of Rome to the glory of France, from the fragile Confederacy to modern-day Lebanon, millions of people have opened their eyes one morning and watched years, sometimes decades, of hard work melt away. Savings vanished. Salaries became meaningless, and futures that once felt solid turned into smoke. Ask yourself, if your country's money lost 90% of its value tomorrow, what would you do? Would you panic? Or would you act strategically? Here's the uncomfortable reality: collapse isn't rare. It's routine. It's woven into the fabric of human civilization. So the real question isn't, could the system fail? It's, what will you do when the system fails? Because eventually it does. We stare at the numbers on our banking apps and feel a false sense of security. We assume our national currency is anchored, solid, immovable. But money isn't metal. It's not stone. Money is a belief, a collective story we agree to trust. And belief can die in a single night. History hits hard, but it teaches harder. Every collapse highlights the same pattern: some things endure, most things don't. And the people who suffer most are the ones who handed over their safetito. Institutions that never planned to protect them. Think about it: how much of your savings do you really trust? And how much of it would survive if that trust disappeared overnight? Would you be forced to rely on someone else's promises, or could you create your own security? Byzantium proves this perfectly. Its gold solidus coin dominated world trade for centuries. It was steady, reliable, unshakable, until the empire itself got desperate. They began mixing in cheaper metals. At first, hardly anyone noticed, but trust isn't broken loudly, it cracks quietly. Once the crack forms, confidence erodes, markets shake, systems crumble, and the only people who kept their wealth were the merchants who quietly held gold, land, and real assets. Not promises, not trust, reality. The lesson is eternal. Governments will always be tempted to dilute their money. Real value will always run toward things they can't touch or print. But collapse doesn't come only from governments. Sometimes it arrives from nature, fate, and chaos. During the Black Death, half of Europe died, entire cities emptied, villages disappeared from maps, and the world felt like it was ending. But hidden beneath the tragedy was a strange economic reversal, with workers now incredibly scarce. Ordinary laborers suddenly became valuable. Wages rose, power shifted, and people with liquidity, silver, tools, livestock, trading goods, took opportunities that didn't exist just years before. Land, homes, workshops, all sold for scraps. Here's a question for you: if half of your community suddenly disappeared, how would you survive? What would be valuable when everything else collapses? It's the same story we saw with COVID, just modernized. Supply chains shattered, governments printed oceans of new money, inflation exploded, markets swung wildly. But there was a pattern: those with cash or assets bought even more. Those living on a fixed salary struggled to breathe. Real estate skyrocketed. Stocks rebounded faster than anyone expected, and an invisible line was drawn between the prepared and the trapped. The pandemic reminded us of a truth people rarely say aloud: when crisis hits and you have just a bit of ammunition, you don't just survive, you accelerate, you move upward while others sink. Florence's banking collapse tells the same story with a medieval twist. The Medici weren't the only giants in town. Florence had some of the world's most powerful banks, believed to be invincible. But when King Edward III defaulted on his massive loans, those unbreakable banks fell like dominoes. Depositors lost everything. Merchants were ruined. Florence's golden age cracked open. Ask yourself, do you really trust any bank to be too big to fail? History says otherwise. And what about your own financial habits? Are you prepared, or are you relying on luck? The Confederacy collapsed in a storm of worthless paper money. The French Revolution devoured its own currency. The Asian financial crisis toppled nations like dominoes. Different timelines, different cultures, different governments, but the underlying story is always the same. paper money collapses, debt chains tighten, and when trust dies, wealth evaporates faster than anyone expects. Look at Lebanon, banks literally locked their doors, people couldn't withdraw their own savings, their currency fell by over 90%, lives were shattered, and once again, the survivors were the ones who held gold, property, dollars, anything the government couldn't freeze, print, or manipulate. Think about it. What would you do if your life savings were suddenly frozen? Would you panic, or would you have a plan? And how would you rebuild if you lost everything? And don't pretend this is ancient history. We lived at point 2008. Global markets nearly imploded point 2020. Panic and chaos point 2023. Banks collapsed in a single weekend. The movie keeps replaying. They just changed the costumes. So how do you protect yourself? History repeats the same message like a warning bell. Real value is whatever governments can't print, banks can't freeze, and crises can't erase. In Byzantium, gold during the Black Death, liquidity in tools. In Florence, caution over confidence. In the Confederacy, food, goods, land. In France, property and physical assets. In Asia, staying out of foreign debt. In Lebanon, leaving the banks early. But the most powerful lesson of all is this: true wealth is not just what you store. It's what you can produce. The baker who can feed a neighborhood, the craftsman who can repair anything, the farmer who creates life from the soil, the trader who knows how to move goods when the world freezes. And here's something many people forget: your network matters too. Friends, family, community, people you can trust, can be just as valuable as gold or property. In every crisis, the people who survived weren't just wealthy, they had connections, knowledge, and skills that allowed them to act quickly. So ask yourself, who do you rely on when everything falls apart? Another important point: mindset matters. Those who panic lose everything. Those who think, plan, and act strategically find opportunity. Survival isn't about luck, it's about awareness, readiness, and action. Ask yourself, are you ready to make tough decisions under pressure? These are the people who not only survive crises, they rise during them. Because money can vanish, but human needs never disappear. Every crisis is a transfer from the blindly trusting to the quietly prepared. From paper wealth to real value, from those who wait to those who act. History has shouted this truth for thousands of years. The question is, will you listen? If one day everything collapses, will you be left holding nothing but promises? Or something that actually holds value? And one final question: when disaster comes, not if, but when, will you be ready, or will you be the one watching everyone else thrive while you scramble? If this video gave you a new way of seeing the world, don't forget to like and subscribe. History hides the answers, and I'll show you exactly where to find them.